All right, so here we are in the section where we're going to talk about creating digital assets. And so let's first talk about what are digital assets. Digital assets are basically any node really in Houdini. And a digital asset more or less refers to when a user creates their own node that has a certain functionality. So let's throw down a GeoNode, and I can just kind of illustrate this. I'm going to just jump inside and throw down an add. So with this add node, I can just tell it to create a point at the origin. So I'm going to turn on the point display. I'm going to hit D to make it so that my my point marker size is a little bit bigger. And then once I click this box, you can see it's created a point at the origin for us. If I were to throw down a point replicate and wire this in, you can see that we are now creating multiple points out of that point just by, adding 100 points per point and distributing them randomly throughout a box, or we can choose a sphere or whatever. If we dive inside, I'm just going to grab this point replicate and double click on it. And you can see that inside of here is a whole nother network where we've got scales, we've got switches that turn things on and off, couple wrangles, and basically more or less all of this functionality on all these nodes, all the relevant parameters have been promoted up to this top level node, so that you kind of don't have to see an entire network out here in your network when the functionality has just been sort of standardized to these things like choosing your quantity, shape, noise, attributes, etc. So this is one example of a digital asset that ships with Houdini, and many of the nodes that you'll find in here, in fact, all of them are digital assets on some level. Someone has made a node of nodes, so to speak, and buried existing functionality within other nodes. And you can do this yourself to create powerful reusable tools. If you find yourself creating a whole like a little chunk of nodes all the time because you want to fulfill some purpose with them, this is a great way to kind of start building a library of reusable assets with relevant controls promoted to the top that you can access and use whenever you want just through this tab menu. You can see I have some of my digital assets that I use quite frequently just docked into my digital assets folder, and these are all created by me. So what we're going to do in this example is we're going to create a simple digital asset that is designed to basically put a little puff of snow on the top faces of any geometry we provide to the node. So in order to do that, first we need to just create a network that we want to create into a digital asset. So let's just do that. I'm going to create a geo, and I'm going to dive inside of it. And now in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use some test geometry. Let's use the rubber toy. And I'm going to throw that down. So I'm going to turn off the points display because don't need that right now. So let's think about how we can scatter snow on top of this object. Well, in the last, in the previous section, we talked about groups, where we were able to create groups based off of certain rules or instructions or parameters to determine like which objects would be in a group or not. So let's just scatter a bunch of points on this object to begin with. So here you can see I'm going to scatter, let's say 10,000 points onto the rubber toy. Then I'm going to throw down a group. And this group has the function in it to create a group by normals. So we want our group to be, I usually call this, because what I'm going to eventually end up doing is deleting all of the points that aren't that I don't want. So I'm going to make a group out of the points I do want, and I'm going to call this the keep group because I want to keep these points. I don't want to delete them. And again, instead of using primitives, I'm going to switch this to points. So we've got a group. You can see it's just selecting all of our points right now. I'm going to disable the base group and then say keep by normals. And you can see here, I could provide a normal direction such as the positive Y if snow is falling down from if snow is falling down from the positive y direction, it would rest sort of on the top. And now the spread angle is 180 degrees. So really anything from positive y all the way down to facing the complete opposite direction, 180 degrees away, meets this criteria. If I bring this value down, you can see that it starts to isolate those groups that I'm actually interested, or those points that I'm actually interested in, to the closer to the vector that is pointing in the positive y direction that we set over here. So this is cool. I could throw down a blast and delete away these points. So by selecting my blast here, I'm just going to select the group keep, and I'm going to say delete non-selected, and that kind of inverts my selection. You can see here it looks like I've got just the points that were facing the top of my object. Now, an important deviation I'm going to go through right now, based off of this, we've covered groups and, such. It just so happens to be that a lot of times these functionalities are, across different nodes, and really I can actually save myself a couple nodes by just using the delete SOP. So I'm going to try doing this with the delete SOP. And in here, it's just a good idea to keep an eye out for different functionalities. You can see here that in my delete node, I'm going to just select points again. And then here you can, I'm going to go over to the normal tab and enable the normals. And you can see that this is basically the same functionality that we had before. If I set my direction to the y-axis, oops, I didn't mean to put an 11 there, just put a 1. If I set my orientation to the y-axis and then dial down the spread angle, you can see that it's deleting all the points that were facing in that positive y direction. What I could do is I could say delete non-selected to invert it. Alternatively, I could just I could just point the direction in -1 if I wanted to keep my positive points. So that's just a slight distinction, but it's good to know that there's these features on your delete node as well. Sometimes it can save you a couple extra steps if you're trying to, just create something to this effect. Cool. So now that we've got our snow particles scattered on the surface of the object where we want them to be, we can start creating maybe some VDBs out of this. So I'm going to create a VDB from particles, and I'm going to wire in my points, and you can see it creates these gigantic spheres for us. Let's say I don't necessarily want them to be that big. I'm going to bring my point radius scale down until I start to get to an area that seems like it's about, in the range of snow. It looks like actually, once you start dropping below, once you start getting close to your voxel size and you start dropping below a certain threshold, it starts to disappear because it doesn't have enough resolution in the SDF to know that you're actually creating, you still want points there. So I'm going to just, I'm going to turn the voxel size down by a factor of 10. So we're going to go to 0.01. You can see our, particle spheres get a lot more defined. I'm going to just continue to reduce this until I get something that resembles snow, something like snow. So maybe something like this for right now. Next, because this is very globular, I'm just going to throw down a VDB smooth SDF, and I'm just going to wire this in, and I'm going to also put my template flag on the rubber toy just so I can have a wireframe representation of the geo under there, make it easier to see. All right, so I've got my snow here. I'm going to just mess with some of these settings so I can get a smoother look out of my geo. Maybe something like let's see, let's do 4 voxel radius of 4 and maybe 10 smoothing iterations, something like that, something that kind of resembles some snow, maybe a little less just so it builds up a little bit more, something like that. Cool. Then nextly, what I will do is I will convert the VDB by throwing down a convert VDB, And we'll wire this in here, and we'll convert it into polygons. Done like that. And that should be good for right now. I just want to test a couple things. See if we can maybe change the direction of the where the snow is coming from. Maybe it came down at an angle like this. So if I introduce a little bit of a direction, honestly, this works better for me if I'm using it. It helps me think about it more. If I'm thinking about having a vector pointing in the direction of where the snow came from. So really this using the negative value here doesn't work for me mentally. I'm just going to turn that back to 1 and then say delete non-selected. So it's deleting non-selected points, which is only this little tiny amount down here. And because we're doing this in the opposite direction, we need to kind of take the inverse of this spread angle. So if I choose something like that, that's kind of brings us back to where we were. Just good to know that there's multiple ways of doing things as always. So let's do something like this for right now. And then I just want to start playing around with the direction of this and see if that, yeah, can add like some different type of behavior, like almost like there is a, like the snow was coming down at an angle and landed on our character at like, you know, maybe a 45-degree angle or something like that. Just by increasing this vector in the x direction. So yeah, you can see that moving around. I'm just gonna go a little bit more with that. Yeah, maybe something like 1. Let's just see where we're at. Cool. You can see it looks like snow is falling on the side of it now. So yeah, at any rate, a pretty simple tool, but we could throw whatever we want at this now. We could throw in a pig head, you know, and if we really wanted to, we could, this is good to know. Now, in my testing here, because this test geometry rubber toy, it comes with, if I middle mouse click on it, it comes with normals, whereas the pig head doesn't come with normals. So an important note is that when we're scattering our points onto this geometry, those points will inherit the normals by default if they exist. But if they don't, then it doesn't know what to do. So anything incoming, we're going to have to add normals to. So let's put down a normal node. And we want point normals because that is, we're using points to scatter. And we want those points to inherit point attributes. So I'm just going to wire the pig head into this normal. You can see the normals appear. And then when I scatter and then go to the end of our network, let's turn off the normals display. You can see we get that sort of snow buildup on the pig head. Cool. Good catch. So now... so now we have sort of a tool we can plug anything into and get this almost like snow-like output. But an important thing to note is that, you know, we could do this for, you know, if we wanted to do it like this, we could literally just copy. I'm going to delete these nodes we're not using. We could copy this right here and we could paste this anytime we needed to use it. Or we could create our first digital asset. So we're going to do that. And the way I'll get started with doing that is I'm going to select everything that I want to go into my digital asset. So I don't necessarily want my input geometry to go in there. I actually just want whatever geometry I supply to my node to go through this network. So I'm just going to select everything after, you know, where all the good stuff happens here. And then I'm going to hit this drop into subnet button up here on the right of my network view. So if I click that, it drops everything inside of a subnet. And if I dive inside, you can see it's taking that first input and running all these operations on it. So now down here at this point, what I could do is I could create a output node. And the output node is basically like a null, in that, except for the fact that it always will be outputting its result regardless of whatever I have flagged in here. So if I go back to the scatter and I'm trying to debug something with the scatter or the delete or something like that, but I pop back out and highlight the subnet, it's still outputting that final output node. So that's just a nice little trick to use when you're trying to create, and this works for solvers or any other kind of subnetwork that you're working with. So just a good note to throw an output down at the end here, because you could change things and still go back up to the top and get expected results. So cool. Now that we have this subnet, we can start doing stuff with it. So this is really where editing parameter interface comes in. So up here, we've got our parameters view, and it basically has almost, it looks like we've got input labels. That's cool. You can see here that this subnetwork input number 1 will have a label that, is reflected down here. We could change this input label to be something else, like say input geo. And if we go hover down here, you can see that our tooltip on the bottom down here just says input geo. So that's cool. So now we've got these other inputs. We don't really need them. We'll clean those up in a little bit. So this next part is called editing the parameter interface. This little gear icon right here, if I click on that, you can say this first option, which is edit parameter interface. And really doing this is like working with user data in Cinema 4D. It's just, it simply is a list of the types of things that you can create that will allow you to, more or less create handles that you can wire into other things deeper inside of this network to get it to do things. So, for example, if I wanted to control the number of points in here that are scattered, we could do that from up on the top level. I'm gonna just disable the output node for right now, so that when we dive up, we actually get the result. Let me see if I can. I don't know if I can. Let's see. I might need to. I'm just gonna delete this output node just for now, so that we can kind of debug this area on the top level. So if I go up here on our subnet, suppose I want to change the number of points that I want to scatter on my object up here. That might be something I want to control. Other things I might want to control are the angle of the snow, the size of the particles that are created by the snow, and the spread angle of the snow. So maybe I can bring all those parameters from down here, such as the total count number here, these spread angle and directions, and other things like the point radius scale or the voxel size here, and maybe the smoothing as well. I can promote that, and then when it converts back. So I don't really need to change anything here, but I could if I wanted to. So let's just focus on the scattering first. So back up here on our geo, you can see when we're down here in our scatter, if I hover over this, you can see it is it says the parameter is NPTS, and it is it's just going to create exactly this many points. So I can just hop up here, go over to my I'm going to select an integer. This is the first way of creating a parameter. I'm going to select an integer just because that's a whole number. We're not going to create half of a particle or anything like that, which would be a float. So since we want an integer number of particles, I'm just going to select an integer and hit this arrow, and it creates it over here. So then what we get is a parameter. I'm going to call this scatter count. And then I'm going to, under the label, I'm going to type scatter count as well. And so this label literally is just a label. So I typically will name this with a space in it. It doesn't need an underscore or anything like that, but this is the parameter that will be referenced down there. So I'll hit apply and accept, and you can see up here we get a scatter count slider. We can slide that however we want. If I go back to edit parameter interface and select the scatter count, I can change the default range. Suppose, we're working up here with 10,000s of points, so maybe we want our range to be something like on the order of 0 to 100,000. We'll just put that down. Of course, the user can go above that if they want. We could put in 200,000. If we wanted, but for our purposes, our slider is right here. We can just kind of select how many points we want by sliding this, but it isn't doing anything yet. And in order to get that set up in the current way that we have it is we can just right click this, say copy parameter, dive inside our network, find our scatter, go to our total count, right click, paste relative references, and you can see it's referencing up to the top level of this node, and it's referencing scatter count. Scatter count is that with the underscore in it, is that parameter that we created when we edited our parameter interface. So if I click that, you can see it's evaluating to 17,434. And if I go back up to my asset here, you can see that I can now change that scatter amount from this top level. Cool. So let's create another parameter. We're going to do it in a slightly different way. Let's work with our deletion stuff. So we're going to work with our direction and spread angle for where we want our snow to be resting on our geometry. So I'm going to go back up here, select the subnet, and let's just open up the edit parameter interface again. With these input labels, I don't want to see them anymore, so I'm going to just select them right here and then tick invisible. So that way they don't really appear in my network and I don't have to look at them ever again. I'm going to hit apply. So now all we have is our scatter count up here. If I ever need to get those back, I can, I believe I go and I can say in here, I can check show invisible parameters. It'll bring them back, but I don't want them for right now. So I'm going to leave them hidden. And so what do we need for our, our deletion? Well, we need this parameter. Well, wouldn't it be convenient if I could just, drag this into the root and have it appear? Well, you can. So there you go. And now if I go back to my subnet, hit apply and accept, we've got our direction, the values we've set for our direction promoted up here. Now, if I go back in, you can see on the deletion, if I click on this parameter, it is referencing itself up on this subnet up here, which is cool. This is a super convenient way of creating like a link. I find it's easier than doing the creating your own and then linking it up by using copy and paste relative reference. You can just drag it in here. So let's do that for a couple other things that we need. But before I do that, I just want to create, let's create a folder. So I'm gonna create a folder, and this folder is going to deal with, scattering. So this will be, we'll just call this scattering. And then this one will be, we'll create another folder. I'm just dragging a folder from the left in here, and I'll put in the direction. And then this folder will be called, let's call this folder direction. And if I hit apply, you can see that by default, these folders are set to this tabs feature. So we got our folders on separate tabs here. It looks like their names didn't work out. I'm going to go back here and call this scattering, and I'm going to go back and call this one direction, and hit apply. And so now our tabs here are reflective of that. Now, I don't feel like this asset's going to have enough parameters to warrant two separate tabs. So I'm going to just turn these into simple mode. So simple mode, if I hit apply now, it just sort of creates a little pale box around them that just sort of helps later label what these little sections are without breaking them out into completely separate tabs. So next thing I want to do is I want to create a spread angle parameter. So another way that I could do this is I could actually go to from nodes into the from nodes section of my create parameters. I could dive into my subnet, find my deletion, my delete SOP, and I could go find, let's see, it looks like it's in the normal section. So I could navigate to the normal folder, and then I could navigate to spread angle and then hit the arrow here to create a spread angle parameter on my inside of my direction. Just drag that inside of the folder and inside the direction folder, and then it should all be organized. If I hit apply and accept and go back up to the top level, you can see that the spread angle is there and it is working as well. That's probably my least favorite way of creating creating parameters on my digital assets, simply because if I go back to edit parameter interface, that's just a lot of navigating and knowing and trying to get into your stuff. But if that's the way your brain works, then by all means go for it that way. For the remainder of this, I'm going to just do the setup using that drag and drop method I depicted before. So let's do another, let's create another one here. And I'm going to go back to by type. It really doesn't matter what's appearing on this left-hand side, but I do need to get a folder. So let's just throw another folder in the root. And this will be called snow underscore surface, and then I'll call it snow surface here. And I'm going to change the folder type to simple again. And I'll hit apply, and I'm gonna let's grab some VDB attributes. So I'm gonna want voxel size, so I can determine the voxel size. I'm gonna want the point radius as well, I think. And then let's see, on the smooth, I'm gonna want the filter radius and the number of iterations. And I'm gonna and that should just about do it. Now I'm gonna rewire in my output node, just so that it's always outputting this final node here. And I'll hit apply and accept, and then I'll go up here to the top, and you can see I've got all these sections with where I can change the voxel size, the point radius scale. I can increase the scale of the snow if I wanted to. I could change how much it's being filtered up here and everything like that. So I think I'm going to just bring my point radius scale down a little bit more, and we'll just leave it like at something kind of like this. Let's just increase the filter radius to something like that. Iterations we'll leave right there. That's good. And spread angle we can leave to that. Looks good. Cool. So now we've basically created our own node. Now, how do we get it so that we can save this so that we can reuse it whenever we want by accessing it from the tab menu? What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my node like this. I'm going to name it something. I don't know if this actually matters at this point, but I'm going to call this the snowy make things snowy. And I'm going to just right click on it, and then down here in this menu you get a create digital asset button. Just going to click that, and you can see here it gives you operator name, operator label, and then it gives you a save to library. Now this library path is located on my drive, my documents, Houdini 17.5 OTLs, Mark Make Things Snowy HDALC. You can change the location of this, but you're going to have to update your Houdini environment file to point to a different directory if you're interested in not having your OTLs stored in this location. For right now, we're going to just stick with this. It's just important to note that if you ever do upgrade Houdini to a new .5 version, so, for example, 17, going from 17 to 17.5 or going to 18, those 0.5 version numbers are big enough to warrant having a new preferences folder in the documents folder. So you just would want to go find your digital assets that you created from these inside the OTLs folder and drag them into your next version of Houdini whenever you make that update. So for me, I personally like to prefix all of mine with my initials and my operator label. I'm just going to capitalize this to make myself happy, make things snowy like that, and I'm going to hit accept. Now this interface pops up, and there's a lot of stuff in here that is very similar to creating to editing parameter interface, like so. You can see I've got my node over here has actually been reduced to one input. That's cool, and I get a little label here that says MF Make Things Snowy. It's looking good. So there's options here. You can see it's defining where it's been saved and everything like that. You can go and mess with any one of these things. We've got your basic stuff, which is your label and your icons. And, for me, you can change the number of inputs that it gets if you wanted it to have 2 inputs or 2 outputs. You can modify all that stuff here. Again, you can mess around with editing your parameter interface from this pop-up window. There's other more advanced features here, like adding handles and controllers to your stuff. For me, what I want to do is I'm going to try and look for this because I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but I wanted to find where it stores. Yeah, so over here in my Tools tab, under Context, Network Pane, tab submenu path is Digital Assets. I just wanted to make sure that was consistent because over here, I have my Digital Assets folder, and it looks like it has already saved it in there. I just wanted to make sure it was in that tab submenu path. So cool. And other stuff. So if I hit apply and accept, now I've got this digital asset. I could throw down now instead, suppose I got other geo like my pig head here. I could hit tab and start typing snow, and it's got make things snowy. And then I could drop my pig head in here, and let's go in here, and you can see if I go like this, I don't see anything happening. It's because my scatter count by default is 0. So I got to crank that up a little bit to get things to start showing up. And let's do something just like 10,000. And also in here, looks like I'm just going to set my direction back to Y, and my spread angle, make it a little bit smaller. And something like that. I can change my voxel sizes from here if I want something more low res. Increase my point radius scale. You can do all sorts of stuff from up here. That was maybe a little bit too big, so let's go back down to maybe 0.2 and bring my point radius down. So now we are creating snow on top of the pig and in the pig's mouth, because the top of the pig's mouth is pointing upwards. So, that's kind of an issue, I guess. My scatter count, I don't want it to come in by default at 10,000. So let's do this. What I could do is I could go, because see how this node over here has an unlocked icon and this one has a locked icon. When I dive into this one, it's grayed out. It means it's locked down. It is set. It is sort of set and reading all of this context out of the digital asset, whereas this one is still a live subnetwork that I can modify. So the only way I can change the contents that are inside of this digital asset are by modifying these sliders up here. Now that this one is unlocked, suppose you didn't have this in your scene. If I just delete this and I just grab this guy and pull it over here and wire it in, and you can see it's working. We're working with our rubber toy now. If I wanted to, change the way my node behaves, I could right click on it and say allow editing of contents. And now this unlocks it. We get this red unlocked icon. I can dive inside and start messing around with things. So what I want to do is let's go up here to our digital asset. I'm going to right click and say type properties. So then this window pops up that we had before here. And if I navigate to our scatter count and then go to channels, you can see that the default is 0. I want to change that to be a default of 1,000, something like that. Not too heavy of a number, just something that isn't 0, so it isn't confusing, just so we can get some feedback when we use our node. So if I hit apply and accept, and then I throw down a new node, snowy, you can see that our scatter count is 1,000 now. Just to be safe, what I like to do is to right click and then say save node type. That will just overwrite the original digital asset. Now what we could do is we could jump into another Houdini project and use this digital asset because it has saved it to our disk. Just to prove the point, I'm going to bring it up real quick. So in my documents, Houdini 17.5 folder, if I go to my OTLs folder, you can see that it's got my Make Things Snowy HDA. Cool. And it's been saved as of today, and that's awesome. So it looks like it also is making backups of them. So when I'm changing things, it will back that up for me. Cool. So I'm just going to close that down right now, and then let's just open up a new instance of Houdini. So I'm just going to go scroll over here. I've got on my other window popping up a brand new session of Houdini Indy. All right. And so now we're in a new session. I could just let's throw down the squab. test geometry. And so there it is. I'm going to just dive inside. And if I hit tab, I can go to my digital assets section. It's got my make things snowy node. Throw that down. Oh, it's defaulted to 1,000 scatter points. Awesome. Wire in my my squab, highlight it, and we're getting a little bit of snow. It looks like we need a little bit more. So we can just increase the scatter count to something like 10,000. That's looking good. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, if you wanted to modify this to have different settings as your defaults, you could just do that the same way. Go back into your type properties, go back to your parameters, mess around in here under your channel section. You get, you know, for example, your spread angle, or your direction. You can change this to be just Y. Click apply and accept, and then we could say, oh, it says it can't do it because we haven't unlocked it. So I'm just going to unlock and save. And now 010 is the new default for that node. So apply and accept. And I'll just merge right now and bring our snow and our test geometry together. And there you go. We've got our snow resting on top of our test geometry. We can change the spread of it, and the angle of it. And you know, this is cool. Like, this is a cool way to save setups that you find yourself frequently using. I know that this is a pretty simple example, but it's just good to kind of go over what time-saving power you have when you are able to create your own nodes. And then you can even nest these nodes inside other nodes, and create some, you know, really, like, I guess it's really cool because you can just package things up and put them inside and build on top of them and just continue to add as much detail to these assets as you want. And you can also, because they're self-contained separate files, you can navigate to your digital assets folder and copy and paste them to a friend or a colleague or somebody who needs to use them in their networks. And yeah, it's just a great way to kind of share your work and to automate your workflow and work quickly and efficiently. So I hope this was helpful, and I'll catch you in the next lesson where we're going to just briefly go over how to save out geometry from our scene.